September 23, 2021, 10:47 p.m. Breathitt County, Kentucky. Body cam footage, Deputy Sheriff Thomas Holbrook. Top 5. Dispatch. This is Unit 9. I'm about 4 miles east of Jackson, heading up toward Frozen Creek. Got a call about someone walking on the road. Possible 1056. Caller said the person looked injured and disoriented. Any additional on that? The radio crackles and spits before Brenda's voice comes through, tired and wary, like she always sounds on the overnight shift. -9. Anonymous caller wouldn't stay on the line. Said they saw a woman in a white dress walking barefoot on the shoulder near the old Callahan property. Said she looked like she'd been through something bad. Caller also said, and I'm quoting here, that we shouldn't go up there after dark. I let out a slow breath and watch my headlights cut through the fog that's rolling down from the ridgeline like something alive, something breathing, something that doesn't want to be seen through. Frozen Creek. The Callahan property. Every deputy in Breathitt County knows that name. Every deputy in Breathitt County has heard the stories. The Callahan massacre happened in 1887. That's what the history books call it anyway. The Callahan massacre. Like it was a single event, a moment in time, something that started and ended and became history. But nothing that happened on Frozen Creek ever really ended. The Callahans were one of the old families, been in these hills since before Kentucky was a state. They had a feud going with the Strongs, another old family over land rights and timber claims, and 100 years of accumulated hatred. On the night of September 23, 1887, the Strongs came up Frozen Creek with torches and guns and ended the Callahan line forever. 17 people died that night, men, women, children. The youngest was 3 years old, the oldest was 87. The Strongs burned the bodies in the house and walked away, and nobody was ever charged with anything. That was justice in Breathitt County back then. That was bloody Breathitt. Any backup available, Brenda? Long pause. -9. Miller's handling a domestic over in Quicksand. Probably going to be there another 2 hours. You want to wait for him? I think about that woman walking barefoot on the road in the dark, injured and disoriented, maybe a victim of assault or a car accident or something worse. I think about what it means to serve and protect. Negative, dispatch. I'll check it out and advise. B. Careful, Tom. Frozen Creek's got history, I know. I find her about 2 miles up the hollow road, just past the rusted gate that marks the old Callahan property line. She's standing in the middle of the road, facing away from me, wearing a white dress that looks like it was made for a different century. Her feet are bare, and her hair is long and dark and hanging down her back like a curtain. I stop the cruiser about 30 yards back and hit my spotlight. She doesn't move, doesn't turn around, doesn't react at all. Ma'am, sheriff's office. Are you okay? Do you need assistance? Nothing. I step out of the cruiser, one hand on my weapon out of habit. The air is different up here, colder than it should be for September. It smells like wood smoke and something else underneath, something old and burnt, something that doesn't belong to any fire that's burning tonight. Ma'am, I need you to turn around and face me. Can you tell me your name? She turns, and I see her face and my hand. Freezes on my weapon, and my blood freezes in my veins, and everything I thought I knew about the world freezes with it. Her face is burned, not scarred, not healed, but burned, the skin blackened and peeling, the flesh underneath showing red and wet like it just happened, like she just walked out of a fire that's been out for 134 years. Her eyes are the worst part. They're clear, untouched by the flames, bright blue and alive and full of something that might be pain or might be rage or might be both. They found us, she says. Her voice is like wind through dead leaves, like embers crackling, like the last breath of a dying fire. They came in the night. They came with torches. They burned us all. Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. I'm going to call for medical assistance. I reach for my radio, but I already know it won't work. Up here, nothing works. Up here, the rules are different. She takes a step toward me, and I take a step back. Mama tried to hide us in the root. Sella, she says. Me and Sarah and little James, we could hear them upstairs. We could hear the screaming. Then they found the door. I can't move. I can't speak. I can't do anything but stand there and listen as she tells me what happened on this spot 134 years ago. Papa was already dead. They shot him first on the porch, while he was trying to talk to them, trying to make peace. Then they shot Grandpa and Uncle William and the boys. Then they came for the women. She's closer now, close enough that I can feel the heat coming off her. the impossible heat of a fire that should have burned out generations ago. Mama begged them to spare the children. She got down on her knees and begged. They laughed. They poured the kerosene anyway. They lit the match anyway. We burned anyway. "Who are you?" I managed to ask. My voice doesn't sound like my own. She smiles, and the burned skin of her face cracks and splits, and I can see bone underneath, white and clean, and somehow still alive. "I'm Elizabeth Callahan. I was 16 years old when they killed me. I've been walking this road ever since, waiting for someone to find me, waiting for someone to hear what happened, waiting for justice. There is no justice," I say, and I don't know why I say it. It's been too long. Everyone involved is dead. Justice doesn't care about time. Her voice hardens into something that isn't human anymore, something older and colder and hungrier than anything that should exist in these hills. Justice just waits, like we wait, like we've always waited. She reaches toward me and I feel her fingers brush my cheek, burning cold, so cold it feels like fire. Then she's gone, just gone, like she was never there, like the fog swallowed her up, or she swallowed the fog. I stand there for a long time, hand on my cheek where she touched me. The skin is numb. When I get back to the station and look in the mirror, there's a mark there. 4 lines, like fingerprints, like burns, like a brand. It fades over the next few weeks, but some nights when the air gets cold and the fog rolls in, I can still feel it. I can still feel her hand on my face. I can still hear her voice telling me about the night her family died. The Callahan property is listed in county records as abandoned land, ownership unclear, no tax liability. The ruins of the original homestead were demolished in 1952 after a surveyor reported seeing figures in the windows of a building that no longer had a roof. Since 1887, there have been 217 reported sightings of figures walking on Frozen Creek Road. Most are dismissed as hoaxes or misidentification, but some, like mine, leave marks. The massacre survivors still walk those hills. Elizabeth Callahan, age 16, Sarah Callahan, age 12, James Callahan, age 8, Margaret Callahan, age 43, old Ruth Callahan, age 87, and others whose names have been lost to time, whose faces were burned beyond recognition, whose bodies were never properly buried. They walk because they're waiting. They walk because no one has ever answered for what was done to them. They walk because in Breathitt County, in bloody Breathitt, some wounds never heal, and some dead never rest. Top 4. February 14th, 2019, 3:23 a.m., Logan County, West Virginia. Dashcam footage, Coal River Security Services, Guard Michael Pennington. I work security for one of the old mine sites up on Blair Mountain. Night shift, 12 hours, just me and the cameras and the ghosts. I say ghosts like it's a joke, but after tonight I'm not laughing anymore. Blair Mountain. If you know anything about Appalachian history, you know that name. The Battle of Blair Mountain, August 1921. 10,000 coal miners marched against the mine owners, demanding the right to unionize, demanding decent wages, demanding to be treated like human beings instead of machinery. The mine owners responded with private security, state police, and eventually the United States Army. They dropped bombs from airplanes. They used machine guns. They killed men who just wanted to feed their families. The official death toll is somewhere between 20 and 100, depending on who you ask. The real number is higher, much higher. The mine owners didn't keep records of every miner they killed. They didn't have to. In 1921, killing a coal miner was barely considered a crime. I've worked this site for 3 years. I've heard things. Footsteps in empty tunnels. Voices calling out names that don't belong to anyone living. Sometimes late at night I hear singing. Union songs, battle hymns, the kind of music that men sang when they were marching to what they knew might be their deaths. Tonight, I heard something different. Tonight I heard gunfire. Not distant, not echoing, but close. Close enough that I grabbed my flashlight and my radio and went out to investigate. Protocol be damned. The old processing facility is about a quarter mile from my guard shack. That's where the sound was coming from. I walked toward it, my boots crunching on gravel that hasn't been used in decades, and with every step, the sound got clearer. Gunfire, shouting, men screaming, the sounds of battle. When I reached the facility, I saw them. Miners, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. standing in formation in the cleared area where the coal trucks used to load. They were wearing work clothes from a century ago, carrying rifles that belonged in museums, their faces blackened with coal dust and blood. And they were fighting, not each other. Something else. Something I couldn't see clearly, shapes in the darkness that moved like men, but didn't look like men, security forces or soldiers, or something worse. The miners were losing. I watched them fall, one after another, cut down by invisible bullets, torn apart by invisible bayonets. And every time one of them fell, he got back up and kept fighting, kept dying, kept getting back up. Again. They've been doing this for 100 years, fighting a battle they already lost, dying deaths they've already died, getting up and doing it again, because that's all they know how to do. One of them saw me. He broke away from the fighting and walked toward me, a big man with a beard and eyes that had seen too much. His chest was torn open. I could see his ribs, his heart still beating, even though it shouldn't be, even though he should have died a century ago. "Brother," he said. His voice was like gravel, like coal, like the mountain itself speaking. "Have you come to join us? Have you come to fight?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at this dead man who wouldn't stop dying. "The battle's not over," he said. "It'll never be over. Not until we win. Not until they pay for what they did." He reached out to hand me his rifle, an old bolt-action thing that looked like it had been through hell and back, and I almost took it. God help me, I almost took it. Something about his eyes, something about his voice made me want to join them, made me want to fight and die and get back up and fight again, forever and ever, until justice finally came to Blair Mountain. I stepped back. "I'm sorry," I said. "I can't." The miner nodded slowly, like he'd heard that answer before. "Then you'd best go," he said. "This ain't your fight. Not yet. But the time's coming, brother. The time's coming when everyone will have to choose a side." He turned and walked back toward the battle, raising his rifle, shouting something I couldn't understand. I ran. I ran back to my guard shack and I locked the door, and I sat there until dawn, listening to the gunfire and the screaming and the singing, Union songs, battle hymns, the music of men who died for something they believed in. When the sun came up, I went back to the processing facility. There was nothing there, no bodies, no bullet holes, no sign that anything had happened except the smell, gunpowder and blood and coal, dust lingering in the air like a memory that wouldn't fade. I quit my job the next day. I couldn't go back there. I couldn't listen to that battle every night, knowing those men were still fighting, still dying, still waiting for reinforcements that would never come. The massacre survivors of Blair Mountain don't rest. They don't move on. They keep fighting the same battle they lost in 1921, night after night, year after year, century after century. And sometimes, when the conditions are right, when the veil between then and now gets thin enough, they recruit. I met a man in Welch a few months ago. He used to work security at another old mine site on Blair Mountain. He told me he took the rifle. He told me he joined the fight. He told me he died 3 times that night and got back up each time and kept shooting. He told me it was the most alive he'd ever felt. He's still up there. I see his truck parked at the old guard shack sometimes when I drive past on my way to somewhere else. But I've never seen him come out. I don't think he can anymore. I don't think any of them can. The Battle of Blair Mountain ended in 1921. The fighting never stopped. And the dead are always looking for new soldiers. Top 3, July 4th, 2020, 11:58 p.m., Wise County, Virginia. Body cam footage, Deputy Sheriff Amanda Crenshaw. Independence Day in Wise County means fireworks and cookouts and drunk drivers, which means every deputy on the force works overtime. I pulled a double shift, noon to midnight, and I was heading back to the station when dispatch sent me one last call. Disturbance at the old Pound Mill site. Someone reported seeing people gathering in the ruins, maybe teenagers partying, maybe vagrants setting up camp. Probably nothing serious. But the Pound Mill site has a history that makes every deputy in this county nervous. The Pound Mill Massacre. August 1892. The workers at Pound Mill had been organizing, talking about strikes, demanding better conditions. The mill owners brought in strikebreakers. The workers fought back. What happened next depends on who tells the story. The owners said it was self-defense, said the workers attacked first, said they had no choice. The workers who survived, the The few of them who did said it was murder. Said the strikebreakers came in the night with guns and clubs. Said they killed everyone they could find, workers and families alike, women and children along with the men. 37 people died that night. Their bodies were thrown in the mill pond. The owners drained the pond and filled it with concrete a month later. Said it was for safety reasons. Everyone knew the real reason. I pull up to the site around midnight. The old mill building is long gone, torn down in the 1950s, but the foundation is still there, concrete and stone, slowly being reclaimed by the forest. My headlights sweep across the clearing, and I see them immediately. People, dozens of them, standing in the ruins, not moving, not talking, just standing there in the dark, facing the center of the foundation like they're waiting for something. I step out of my cruiser, one hand on my weapon. Sheriff's office. This is private property. I need everyone to identify themselves and explain why you're here. Nobody moves, nobody responds. I walk closer, flashlight beam playing across their faces, and I realize something is wrong. They're too still, too quiet, and their clothes are wrong. Old-fashioned, the kind of rough-woven fabric and simple cuts that people haven't worn in over a century. Hello? I keep my voice steady, but my heart is pounding. Can anyone hear me? One of them turns. A woman, maybe 30 years old, wearing a dress that's torn and stained with something dark. Her face is pale, too pale, and her eyes are unfocused, looking at me but not seeing me, looking through me at something that isn't there anymore. They came in the night, she says. Her voice is distant, dreamlike. They came with guns and clubs. They killed my husband first, shot him in the back while he was trying to run. Then they came for me. Ma'am, I need you to tell me your name. Are you injured? Do you need medical assistance? She shakes her head slowly, mechanically. I don't need anything anymore. None of us do. We just wait. We just remember. We just hope someone will finally listen. The others are turning now, all of them, facing me with those same unfocused eyes, those same pale faces. I can see their injuries now. Gunshot. Wounds and skull fractures and cuts that go down to the bone. I can see what was done to them 128 years ago. We were just workers, a man says. His jaw is broken, hanging at an angle that makes it hard to understand his words. We just wanted fair wages. We just wanted to be treated like people. Is that so much to ask? They're all talking now, voices overlapping, a chorus of the dead telling me their stories, telling me how they died, telling me what they lost. A woman who was pregnant with her third child, a teenager who had just started his first job, an old man who had worked in the mill for 40 years and thought he'd earned some dignity. All of them killed. All of them thrown in the pond like garbage. All of them waiting for someone to acknowledge what was done to them. I try to back toward my cruiser, but I can't move. Something is holding me in place, not physically but deeper, like the weight of their combined grief is pressing down on my soul. Listen, the woman in the torn dress says. She's right in front of me now, close enough to touch, and her hand reaches out and takes mine. Her fingers are cold, so cold, like holding ice, like holding death. Listen and remember. Then I'm not in the clearing anymore. I'm in the mill, the old mill that was torn down 70 years ago. It's dark and loud, machinery grinding, and there are people running, screaming, dying. I watch it happen. All of it. Every death, every murder, every act of brutality that... August night in 1892. I watch a man try to shield his wife with his body and get shot 11 times. I watch a child hide under a workbench and get dragged out by her hair. I watch the killers laughing, joking, treating it like sport. I watch them throw the bodies in the pond and wash the blood off their hands and walk away without consequence. When I come back to myself, I'm on my knees in the clearing, tears streaming down my face. The figures are gone. The ruins are empty. But I can still hear them, faint and distant, their voices carried on the wind. Remember us. Tell our story. Don't let them forget. I drive back to the station in silence. I write my report, listing the call as unfounded, no evidence of trespassing. But I spend the next 6 months researching. I find the records, the ones the mill owners tried to destroy. I find the names of the victims, all 37 of them. I write an article for the County Historical Society. I petition to have a memorial erected at the site. The memorial was installed last year. A simple stone with 37 names, a brief description of what happened, an acknowledgement that these people existed. that they lived and worked and died and deserved to be remembered. I went back to the site after the dedication ceremony. It was daylight, warm, the clearing filled with wildflowers that had grown up through the ruins. I thought I saw movement at the edge of the forest. A woman in a torn dress, watching me. She nodded once, slowly. Then, she was gone. I haven't seen them since. I don't know if the memorial was enough. I don't know if anything could ever be enough for what was done to them. But I hope, wherever they are now, they know that someone finally listened. Someone finally remembered. Someone finally told their story. Top 2. December 12, 2017. 2:15 a.m. McDowell County, West Virginia. Audio recording, personal cell phone. Paramedic Sarah Dalton. I'm making this recording because I need someone to know what happened. Tonight. My name is Sarah Dalton. I'm a paramedic with McDowell County EMS. Badge number 4471. Tonight my partner and I responded to a call at the old Havoc mine site, and what we found there is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Havoc. The name doesn't mean anything to most people. It's not in any history books. It's not taught in schools. But the people who live in McDowell County know. The people who lost family there know. November 1907. An explosion in Havoc mine number 3. Killed 84 men and boys. The youngest was 12 years old. The oldest was 63. The cause of the explosion was never officially determined, but everyone knew. Bad ventilation, accumulated methane. The company cut corners to save money, and 84 people paid the price. What happened next was worse. The company sealed the mine with the bodies still inside, said it was too dangerous to attempt a recovery, said the families should be grateful for the settlement money, said it was time to move on. The families never moved on. How could they? Their fathers and husbands and sons and brothers were still in that mountain, entombed in rock and coal and darkness. They held a memorial service at the mine entrance, but it wasn't a funeral. You can't have a funeral without bodies. You can't have closure when the people you love are trapped forever in the place that killed them. Tonight's call came in at 1:47 a.m. Anonymous caller said there were people gathered at the old Havoc site, said they could hear screaming from inside the mountain. My partner Marcus and I took the call because nobody else was available, and because we're both the kind of stupid that thinks we can help anyone, anywhere, anytime. We drove up the old access road, past the warning signs and the chain-link fence and the concrete barrier that's supposed to keep people out. The mine entrance is still visible, a dark hole in the mountainside sealed with rusted steel plates and decades of neglect. And there were people there. Maybe 24 of them standing in front of the sealed entrance, holding candles, singing. At first I thought it was some kind of memorial service, an anniversary gathering. Family members come to pay respects. But as we got closer, I realized something was wrong. The people were wearing old clothes, work clothes, mining gear, the kind of stuff you'd see in photographs from 100 years ago. Their faces were covered in coal dust, and they weren't just singing. They were crying. We approached slowly, my partner calling out that we were EMS, asking if anyone needed assistance. One of them turned to look at us. A boy, maybe 12, maybe 13. His face was burned, the skin blackened and peeling, one eye socket empty and dark. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just smoke. Smoke pouring from his throat like he was still burning, still dying, still trapped in the moment of his death. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but stare at this dead child who was looking at me with his one remaining eye, asking a question I couldn't understand. Then the screaming started. Not from the people in front of us, from inside the mountain. 84 voices, screaming in unison, begging for help, begging for rescue, begging to be released from the tomb they'd been sealed in for 110 years. The sound was unbearable. It was inside my head, inside my chest, inside my soul. I fell to my knees, hands over my ears, but I could still hear it. I could hear every single one of them, every individual voice crying out in the darkness, "Help us. Please help us. We're still alive down here. We're still waiting. Why won't anyone come?" My partner was on the ground next to me, convulsing, blood streaming from his nose. The figures with the candles had surrounded us, and I could see their faces now, see the burns and the wounds and the terror frozen on their features. They weren't ghosts. They were memories. They were pain given form, suffering so intense it had burned itself into the fabric of reality. The burned boy knelt down next to me. Up close, I could smell him. Coal and smoke, and something sweet, something rotten, something that had been dead for over a century. "We can't leave," he said. His voice was like ash, like ember, like the last breath of a fire that never really went out. "They sealed us in. They left us here. We've been screaming ever since. No one ever hears us." I wanted to help him. I wanted to tear down those steel plates and dig through that sealed entrance and bring them all out into the light, but I knew it wouldn't matter. The bodies were gone, crushed or burned or decomposed into nothing over the past 100 years. All that was left was the echo, the pain, the endless, unanswered scream. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry." I don't know if he heard me. I don't know if any of them heard me, but the screaming stopped. The figures faded. The candles went out. When I opened my eyes, it was just me and Marcus, lying on the ground in front of a sealed mine entrance, alone in the dark. Marcus doesn't remember anything. He woke up with a headache and a nosebleed, and no memory of what happened after we arrived at the site. I've never told him. I've never told anyone. Until now. The Havoc mine number 3 is still sealed. The bodies are still inside. And on certain nights, when the air is still and the mountain is quiet, you can still hear them screaming. 84 voices. 110 years of unanswered prayers. The massacre survivors of Havoc didn't die in a massacre. They died in an explosion, an accident, an act of corporate negligence. But what happened after was murder. Sealing them in, abandoning them, refusing to let their families have the closure of a proper burial. That was the real crime. That was the real massacre. And the dead are still waiting for someone to answer for it. Top 1, April 3rd, 2023, 9:47 p.m., Mingo County, West Virginia. Body cam. Footage, final transmission, Sheriff's Deputy Nathan Hatfield. My name is Nathan Hatfield, yes, that Hatfield. My family's been in these hills since before the famous feud, and we'll be here long after everyone forgets why our name matters. But tonight, I'm not thinking about family history. Tonight, I'm thinking about survival. I'm recording this because I don't know if I'm going to make it out of Matewan. And if I don't, someone needs to know the truth about what happened here. What really happened here. Everyone knows about the Matewan massacre. May 19th, 1920. The Baldwin-Felts Detective Agency came to town to evict miners from company housing. Police Chief Sid Hatfield stood up to them. Shooting started. When it was over, 7 detectives and 2 miners were dead. That's the official story, that's what the history books say. But the history books don't tell you what happened after. They don't tell you about the reprisals, the midnight raids, the families dragged from their homes and shot in the streets. They don't tell you about the mass graves in the hollows, the bodies dumped in mine shafts, the children who disappeared and were never found. The official death toll of the Matewan massacre is 10. The real number is closer to 100. And every single one of them is still here. Tonight started like any other shift. Routine patrol, quiet streets, the usual drunk or two stumbling home from the bar. Then dispatch sent me to check on a disturbance at the Old Stone Mountain Coal Company store. Someone reported lights in the windows, voices inside, what sounded like a fight. The building's been abandoned for decades. It's one of the last original structures from 1920, preserved as a historical site, but never actually maintained. Kids break in sometimes, urban explorers looking for ghosts. They usually find more than they bargained for. I pull up to the building, and immediately something feels wrong. The lights in the windows aren't electric. They're flickering, dancing, the kind of light that comes from oil lamps or candles. And the voices I can hear aren't the voices of teenagers messing around. They're shouting, arguing, the kind of heated debate that sounds like it's about to turn violent. I step out of my cruiser and the air changes. It gets thicker, heavier, harder to breathe. It smells like coal dust and gunpowder and blood. The street around me starts to shift, the modern buildings fading, older structures rising in their place. I'm not in 2023 anymore. I'm in 1920. I'm standing on the street where it happened. I can see them now, the detectives, stepping off the train, spreading out through the town with their guns and their eviction notices and their absolute certainty that no one would dare stand against them. I can see the miners gathering in doorways and alleys, watching, waiting, hands on weapons they've hidden in their coats. I can see Sid Hatfield standing in the middle of the street, badge gleaming, refusing to back down. I know how this ends. I've known since I was a child, heard the story 1,000 times at family reunions and local festivals, but knowing the history doesn't prepare you for watching it happen. The shooting starts suddenly, the way violence always does. One moment there's tension, words, posturing. The next moment there's gunfire, screaming, bodies falling. I watch the detectives die. I watch the miners die. I watch men I recognize from photographs, men who've been dead for a century, cut down in front of me like it's happening right now. Because for them it is happening right now. For them it never stopped happening. May 19th, 1920, playing on an endless loop, the worst day of their lives repeated forever, because the trauma was too intense to ever fade away. Deputy Hatfield. A voice behind me. I turn, and there's a man standing there. He's wearing a police uniform from 100 years ago, a badge that matches my own. His face is familiar, the same face I see in old photographs, the same face that looks back at me from the mirror because we're family. We share blood, we share a name. Sid Hatfield, the man who stood up to the detectives, the man who became a legend, the man who was murdered on the courthouse steps in McDowell County a year later, gunned down by the same company that sent the detectives in the first place. You shouldn't be here, he says. His voice is tired, worn, the voice of a man who's been fighting the same battle for 100 years. This isn't your fight anymore. I'm law enforcement, I say, just like you. If there's trouble here, it's my responsibility. He laughs, but there's no humor in it. Law enforcement. Do you know how many lawmen have died on this street? How many deputies and marshals and federal agents have wandered into our loop and never wandered out? I look around and I see them. Other figures in the chaos, other uniforms mixed in with the miners and detectives, men from different eras, different decades, all of them caught in the same endless moment. How do I get out? The shooting is getting closer, bullets are whistling past my head, and I know they can hurt me, know they can kill me, know that if I die here, I'll become part of the loop like all the others. Sid Hatfield looks at me for a long moment. Then he reaches out and puts his hand on my shoulder. His touch burns. Cold fire that cuts through me like a blade. Remember us, he says. Tell our story. The real story. Not the sanitized version they put in textbooks. Tell them what the companies did to us. Tell them why we fought. Tell them why we're still fighting. I will. Then run. He pushes me, and the world spins. And suddenly, I'm back on the modern street, the 2023 street, with my cruiser behind me, and the abandoned building in front of me, and the sounds of gunfire still echoing in my ears. I run. I get in my cruiser and I drive until Matewan is miles behind me, until my hands stop shaking, until I can breathe again. But I can still hear them, the shooting, the screaming, the endless battle of May 19th, 1920, playing out over and over in a town that can never forget what happened there. The official death toll of the Matewan massacre is 10. The real number is much higher, and every single one of them is still there, trapped in the moment of their death, waiting for someone to finally tell the truth about what the coal companies did to the people of Appalachia. I'm telling it now. I'm recording this, and I'm going to make sure it gets out, make sure people hear it, make sure the sacrifice of Sid Hatfield and everyone who fought beside him isn't forgotten. The massacre survivors of Matewan don't wander. They stand their ground, just like they did in 1920, just like they always will. The battle for dignity, the battle for justice, the battle that never really ended. Some fights are too important to ever stop fighting. Some dead are too determined to ever stop dying. And some stories are too true to ever stop telling. The wandering dead of Appalachia, 5 massacre sites, 5 eternal battles, 5 groups of survivors who refused to rest. Buffet 5, the Callahan Massacre, Frozen Creek, Breathitt County, Kentucky, 1887. Victims, 17. Cause, family feud violence. Current manifestation, individual spirits walking the hollow road. Contact type, physical, leaves marks on the living. Status, active. There 4. The Battle of Blair Mountain, Logan County, West Virginia, 1921. Victims, 100 plus. Cause, labor uprising suppression. Manifestation, current, nightly battle reenactment. Contact type, recruitment attempts can absorb the living into the loop. Status, active and expanding. There 3. The Pound Mill Massacre, Wise County, Virginia, 1892. Victims, 37. Cause, labor organizing suppression. Current manifestation: mass gathering, memory transmission. Contact type: psychic, forces witnesses to experience the massacre. Status: partially resolved after memorial installation. Number 2. The Havoc mine disaster, McDowell County, West Virginia. To 1907, victims 84, cause mining explosion, bodies sealed in mine. Current manifestation: screaming from sealed entrance, manifestation of victims. Contact type: audio and visual, causes physical distress in witnesses. Status: active, unresolved. Number 1. The Matewan Massacre, extended. Mingo County, West Virginia, 1920-1921. Victims, 100 plus. Cause: coal company violence against organized labor. Current manifestation: full temporal loop, can trap the living. Contact type: temporal displacement. Potential permanent absorption. Status: active, dangerous, law enforcement casualties confirmed. The massacres of Appalachia weren't isolated incidents. They were a pattern, a century of corporate violence against working people, families destroyed, communities shattered, bodies hidden in graves that no one was allowed to mark. The survivors don't wander aimlessly. They patrol, they remember, they wait for the justice that never came. And sometimes, when the right person comes along, they recruit.